a Java application. So it is a project case study. So we have this project requirement. XYZ company wants a software for maintaining their employee details. HR department wants the following functionalities. Add new employee detail whenever an employee is onboarded. View list of employees. Update employee details. Remove employee details when an employee leaves the organization. An employee should be able to apply leave. The manager should be able to approve or reject the leave. The manager should be able to provide ratings to employees during the performance appraisal. And employee details to be stored are employee ID, name, designation, and salary. So this is the project requirement. So for this project requirement, we see how to implement this project requirement by creating a Java application, but it will be a desktop application. Okay, so we are going to create a desktop application, and this application we do not use any database. We store the uh, data collection in a collection class like array list. Okay, so the objective of this project case study is to understand how to uh, develop Java application using layers. So we are going to see different layers while developing the application. Okay, so we usually have these kind of layers, like we have controller, we have service, we have repository, then we have the model, and we also have exception. So these controllers are used as the entry point for any application. Entry point. So service layers are used for implementing the business logic. So in our case, we do not have much business logic to implement, but still we have the service layer. Okay, so this is for the implementing business logic. And repository layer, we use the data access logic. That is, when we store data or any objects, either in any of the persistent storage like database. So we use the data access logic. Is how to interact with database, how to store data, how to access data, all those things we write inside this repository layer. So we create these layers, and model actually uses the model classes. So whenever we develop application, we first identify the entity classes or domain class, or you can call it as model class. These classes abstract the persistence information, that is information which we need to store it into the database. So those classes are called model class, or we can also call it as entity class. Okay, first thing is we will create a project. Okay, we will create a project first, and we use the uh, packages for layering approach, right? So first thing is we have to create a Java project. So it is a standalone Java project. Okay, we give the name as EMP management system. So this is the project name. So now what we do is we create packages in this project. Okay, so first thing is we have to create some packages for each layer. We create package for the model, we create package for controller, we create package for the repository, and so on, service also. Okay, right. So we'll create package now. Com dot training dot model. We create package for controller. Com dot training dot controller. We create package for service, service. Then we create package for repository, repository package and service package. So now what we do, we will create a model class employee. So the employee class is the class which is going to hold the information about the data to be persisted, right? So we will create a model class employee class, and we introduce few instance variables inside this class. Okay, so employee. So inside employee class, we will write some instance variables, right? So those instance variables are the data such as the ID. Employee needs an ID, name, salary, and designation. So these are the instance variable. We write it inside the employee class. Okay. So these information are going to be persisted in database. So that is why we have to have it here. So generally we write, whenever we write the instance variables, we have to use the private access modifier. So that is the best practice we have to follow. Okay. So we use private before these instance variables. Okay. Private int id, private we have string name. Okay, name of the employee, then private, and we can give the designation for employee. Okay, string private string designation. Okay, then we have the salary. We have salary. Okay, so now we have declared all the instance variables, and this class has one. We can have a business logic method inside this class, the calculating the salary of the employee. So we have a method called, we have a method public void calculate salary, public void calculate salary. Okay, so this method will calculate the salary of the employee, right? Okay, at present we keep this method as empty, so later we can fill the business logic. Okay, now we have to include a parameterized constructor for this employee class. Okay, so let us include a parameterized constructor. So we have selected all the fields. So click OK. So we get a parameterized constructor. Now we need the getter and setter methods for all these instance variables. Okay, let us also include a getter and setter methods. Okay, so that is also needed, right? So we select all these fields and click OK. So the getter and setter methods will be available in this class. So now we have created the employee class. It is ready. So now we will start writing the controller class and other class and so on. So inside the controller class, we have to write methods for all the functionalities in this project case study requirement, like adding employee, retrieving employee details, update employees, remove employees. All those for all those functionalities, we have to include methods. Now let us create a controller class inside controller package, and we include methods inside that class. So we create employee controller, and inside this controller class let us have methods for each functionality. So in the use case, in the project case study requirements, we have use cases like add employee details. We have get employee details, getting all the employee details, remove employee details. For all these requirements, for all these use cases, let us create one method in this employee controller class. Okay, so let us write a method public void add employee details. This method takes employee as parameter, employee object as parameter. Okay. Now we keep this method as empty. Later we will add code into it. We need to import this employee class in this class. So now we will add method for getting all the employees. Public list get all employees. So this method will return a array list. We will keep this method as also empty. So we will write code once we complete all the classes. Okay. So this method has to return a array list. Right now we will return a null value. Then we will write getting a specific employee details for a given ID. Okay. So get employee details. This will take ID as a parameter. Okay. And this method will return a employee object. Right now we will return null value. Then we will write update employee details. So this method will take a employee object, update employee details. This will take employee object as a parameter. Okay. Next is the last method, that is removing an employee. So we will have a method public void remove employee details This method take a ID as parameter. Okay, so we have created all the methods inside this employee controller class. Now what we do is the service class also will have the same methods. Okay, so we will copy these methods inside this class and we can paste it inside the service class. So now we create a service class inside the service package. So employees, we create a class called the employee service, and inside this class, inside this employee service class, we will paste these methods that we have copied it from the employee controller. Okay, so this will also have all these methods. And finally, we will create a repository class, and inside repository also we can have the same methods. Okay, so now we create a employee repository class. Okay, employee employee repository, and inside this class we paste the all the methods that we have copied it from the employee controller class. Okay, so now we have done that. So now we have methods in all these classes. Now it is time to write code inside the employee controller class. Now we have to integrate these layers. So employee controller methods, the methods inside the employee controller will call the employee service class method, and employee service methods calls the invoke the employee repository methods. So we have to do that part now. Okay, so let us go to the employee controller class, and what we have to do is we have to create a employee service object. So we have to declare first a employee service variable of type employee service. Okay, employee service emp service. Okay, so emp service is the variable name, and we create the object. We create the employee service object, new employee service object, employee service. Okay, so we create the employee service object, and we can call the, we have to import, right? We have to import this employee service into this employee controller class. We have to import this employee service class here. Now we can call the methods. Okay, so now we can call inside the add employee details method of the employee controller class. We can call the employee service add employee details method. Okay, same way, inside the get all employees method, we can call the employee service get all employee method. Okay, get all employees method you can call here. Same way, inside the get employee details method, we can call the employee service get employee details method. Same way, inside the update employee details method, you can call the update employee details method of the employee service class. And finally, inside the remove employee details method, we can call the remove employee details method of the employee service class. So we have done this part. Next is we have to go to the employee service class, and we have to create the employee repository object. So we have to first declare a private variable, private employee repository, okay, emp repo. This is the variable name. Then we create the object employee repository. Okay, so we have to import it here also. We have to import the employee repository class here. So now we are done that. Now we can call inside the add employee details method of the service class employee service. You have to call the employee repository method. Okay, dot we have to call add employee details method inside the get all employees method of the employee service. We have to call the employee repositories get all employees method. Same way, inside the get employee details method, we have to call the employee repository get employee details method. Same way, we have to call the inside the update employee details method, we have to call the update employee details method of the employee repository. Same way, finally, inside the remove employee details method of the employee service, you have to call the remove method of the employee repository class. So we have done this part also. Now what we have to do is we have to write the code inside the employee repository. So employee repository is actually store the data, right? It store the data into the database. It access retrieve the data from the database. It will remove the data in from the database. It will also update the details into the database. So it will do the all the employee it will do the database interactions, right? It will do all the database interaction. In this case, in our case, we use the instead of database we use the array list to store and retrieve data. So that is the part we have to do now. We will write code inside this employee repository class. We create an array list, private list. This array list is used to store employee objects. So we write employee as generic, right? We use the name as employee list equal to new array list. Okay, employee. So we have created the employee array list object. Okay, so we need to import the array list. So now we have the employee array list is ready. This will be used as database for us. Okay, we are using this employee array list as a database in our case. So inside the add employee details method, what we have to do is we have to add this employee object into this array list. Add add employee. Okay. So add method we pass the employee object, right? We are done this part. Next is very easy. We have to retrieve. We have to return all the employees. Get all employees method will return all the employees. We simply return this employee list. Okay. Now here in this get employee details, we have to find the employee uh, employee objects from the we have to find the employee object from the array list for that ID passed to this method. So this method get employee details method we have to find the specific employee object. So for that we have to iterate the array list. So we need to iterate the array list. So how to iterate the array list? So for that we have to use the iterator. Okay. So we have to use the iterator. Okay. So, so how to get the iterator? Iterator we can get it from the employee array list. So employee array we have to use the method iterator. There is a method called iterator. You have to call that method. That method will return you the iterator for that array list. Okay. So once you get the iterator, so we need to import. We need to import also, right? So now we are done that part. Now what we have to do is we have to iterate this. We have to iterate using the iterator. We have to traverse through the array list. So how to do that? We have to use the while loop. While I dot has next. So this method will return true if there is a employee object available, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. Then inside this while loop, what we have to do is, first thing I have to declare here, yeah, employee variable of type employee. Later in inside we can use that one. Okay, so e equal to e is the employee object variable, I dot next. So this next method will return the next employee object inside the array list. And we have to check here if id is an integer value, so we have to use double equal id equal to e dot get id. If both ids are same, then we can return the employee object. So that means we have found that employee object that we are trying to we are searching. So we can return that employee object. If both ids are equal, the id passed to this method is equal to the id of that employee object which is in the array list. If both are same, then that employee object is the one which we want to find out. So we can return that employee object. So we can return e is the employee object. Okay, otherwise we can return, if we don't find it, we can return the null value. Okay, so this is how we can write this code for get employee details. Okay, right. Next thing is we have to update the employee details. So in order to update employee details, we need to first we have to take the employee object from the array list, right? So that is the thing we have to do it first. So here also we need the iterator, right? We have to iterate this, so we can copy this code and take it and paste it inside the update employee details method. And what we have to do is we have to compare the ID of this object, employee object. That employee object passed to this method. That ID you have to compare with the ID of that employee object which is available in the array list. That is the thing we have to do. So here we have to compare. Okay, update employee dot get ID. We have to compare that. Okay, with the employee object that we have taken from the uh, from the array list. Okay, so now we are comparing if both object are both ids are same, then what we need to do is we have to um, update that. So we have to now update. How to update it? We can we can normally update the id will not be changed, name will not be changed, only the salary part or the designation will change. So what we can do, we can update this way. We are going to update the employee object in the array list. Okay, we have found that employee object which we want to update. Then we can call the set method, set designation, and inside we have to call the update employee, the object passed to this method. That method's set get method you have to call. Okay, so get designation. What we are doing here, this method update employee details, we are passing a employee object. That object is containing the updated data. With that data we have to update the employee object which is stored inside the array list. So E is the employee object which is available in the array list. We call the set designation method. Inside the method, we call the get designation method of the employee object passed to this method. So we are setting the value from the data that we get it from the update this method. Okay. So this is how we can update the employee object. We can also update the designation and the salary also we can update, right? We can update the salary. So updated employee dot get salary. Okay, so this we have done. So update we have done. Next is the remove. So remove also we need the same iteration logic we need. So we can copy it from here. Okay, So we can copy it from here and we can use it. Because here also you have to find the employee object you want to remove, then we can remove it. So here we can do this way. So, and we can do one thing. Here we declare the employee, declare a variable of type employee. Okay. Now what we do is, so here what we do here is we get the iterator first, then we are iterating, we are calling the hash next method. Inside the while loop we go and we call the next method and check if both IDs are same. The ID for which we want to remove the object, that ID, and the object inside the array list, and that employee ID both are same. That is, then that means that is the employee object we want to remove. Okay, so what we can do, we can assign that value, that e to the to this here. So we can have employee, so we can assign that object here equal to e. Okay, so now we got that employee object that we want to remove. Then outside the while loop, right, outside the while loop, what we can do is we have to check if employee is not equal to null. If it is not null, that means we got the employee object that we want to remove. Sometimes there are chances that that ID we want to remove for that array list that may not contain that employee object. So in that case, the ID will be, the employee object will be null. So if we found that employee object, then it will not be null. If it is not null, then we need to remove that object from the list. We need to remove that object from the list. We call the remove method. We call the remove method and pass that employee object. Okay. So this is how we can write. So we are done with that part. So here we have to declare. Okay. So now it is done. So once again we will explain what the remove employee details method works, how it is working. Line number 57, we declare a variable employee of type employee, we assign null value. Then at line number 59, we got the iterator for that array list. Using that iterator, we are iterating that array list. We get employee object from that array list, and we compare the ID which is passed to this method with the ID of the employee object which is available in the array list. If both IDs are same, then that means that is the employee object we want to remove. Then we assign that employee object to the this employee variable. So now we got found the employee object that we want to remove. Then outside the while loop, we can check if it is not null. Then we remove it using the remove method. Okay, so that is how it works. So we have done with this part. So we have done all the part, right? So we have completed the um, repository also. So we have completed all the layers: controller layer, service layer, repository layer. One layer is remaining. One, it is not a layer, but we need to have do the exception handling. We need to do the exception handling. So employee controller, if the employee controller, so we have the get employee details method, right? So this method sometimes return a null. Sometimes employee may not be available for that ID. So in that case, that employee, it will return a employee object, but it will be a null value. So in this case, we are not supposed to return that employee object if it is null. In this case, we have to throw exception, right? We have to throw exception if that employee object is null. That means, if null means for that ID there is no employee available, employee not found for that ID. So in this case, we have to throw exception rather than return the null object to the client. Okay, so what we do is we will create a exception. There is a package. We create a package for exception, and we create one exception class, user defined exception class, right? We do that now. So package com dot training dot exception, and we create a exception called employee not found exception. We write a class called employee not found exception. Employee not found exception. Okay, so this class, we have this class has to extend the exception class. It has to extend. It has to extend exception, and we will have one ID. We will have one constructor, right? We will have one variable, instance variable, private int id, employee id. Okay, for that id we are not able to find the employee object, so we will have one constructor as well, public. We will have a default constructor as well. No, not a default constructor. We can have a parameterized constructor here. We don't need default constructor in this case. So public, this one, int, int id, and we will assign this id passed to this constructor, to this variable, right? Okay. We also have a toString method. Okay, let us include a toString method to this class also. Okay, so we'll do that part now. We generate a toString method, right? Fine. So we have everything is ready. Exception class is ready now. So where we need to handle this exception? So you can handle this exception inside the controller class. Okay, so inside the controller class, what we do is we will we are calling inside the get employee details method, we are calling the get employee details method of the service class. Okay, so what we do is here we get this, we assign that the get employee details method will return a employee object. Get employee details method of employee service class will return a employee object. We assign that, we store that employee object into the e, into the variable e of type employee. Now we check if e, right, if e is equal to null, if e is equal to null. In this case, what we have to do is we have to throw employee not found exception, employee not found exception, and in the constructor you have to pass the id. Okay, right? So now we have to import this employee not found exception. Else, there is no else. If e equal to null, then we have to return this employee not found exception. You have to throw. We have to use this throw also. We have to use throw new employee not found exception and return e. Okay. So if the employee object is null, then this it will throw the exception. So otherwise, if the employee object is not null, we are returning that employee. So one more thing, we have to, it is a checked exception, right? So we have to write it here, throws. We have to use a throws class, throws employee not found exception. Okay, so we are done with the part. We are done with the coding now. So now it is time to do the testing, right? It is the time to do the testing. So let us test this application using a class called test class. Test class is a main class. It has a public static void main method. Inside that main method, we can call the employee controller methods and test it. Now we will test this application by writing a test class. So we will create a test class which we can keep it inside the controller class, controller package. Okay, so that it be easier. So we can have a test class. We'll create a test class, test, and this class will have a main method, public static void main method. Now inside this main method, what we can do is we can test all the test all the methods of the controller class. So what we do is first we will create a controller object. Okay, so employee, let us have a controller employee controller ec equal to new employee controller. So we have created the employee controller object. Next thing is we will call the add employee details method and pass the employee object. Okay, so we will create we will add few 4 or 5 employee objects. Okay, use by using the by calling the add employee details method. And we can inside the add employee details method we pass the employee object employee, and we have to pass the values, right? So we need to know the constructor. So we have to pass all these values to the constructor. Okay, so we have to pass id, not one. We have to pass name Kumar. Then you have to pass the designation as manager, and salary as 70,000. Okay, so now we have done that. We have to import this employee class into this class. Okay, next we will add few more employee objects by calling this add employee details method. We can do that now. So there are totally 5 employee objects we can pass it. 102 Ram, project lead, then salary as 50,000, then 103 John, developer, 70,000, then 104 Rani, Esther, 80,000, then we have Muttu, developer, 60,000. So these are the employees. These employees we have added. Okay, so now what we do is we need to retrieve all the employees using the get all employees method. Okay, we'll do that part. So for that we will declare a static method outside the main method. Okay, public static void. Here we'll have get all employees, and we pass the employee controller object inside it. Okay, we pass this object EG. Then inside we can call the employee controllers get all employees method. So list emp list equal to ec dot get all employees. Okay, so this will return you the array list. Then we can iterate this array list. So you can have the generics employee. Okay, so let us import this array list. Okay, so now we have done that part. Now we have to iterate this emp list, and we can print all the employee details. Okay, so what we have to do that, so we can do like get the iterator from the array list emp list dot iterator, and once we get the iterator we can iterate this array list. Using the iterator we can iterate. Okay, so let us do that now. While I dot has next, and inside this what we do is we will get the employee object equal to I dot next, and we will, this is because we are getting compilation error, because we have to, if you use this generics we won't get it. Okay, right? So now it is gone. So now we can use the sysout system dot out dot println and print employee id e dot get id. Same way we can retrieve all the details. We can print all the details of that employee. Okay, so we have this. So we have to id employee name, then employee designation, then employee salary. So everything we can get it, right? So this is the employee. We have to call the get employee ID method, right? So you have to call e dot get name, then e dot get designation, then e dot get salary, right? So we got this. So now everything is ready. So now what we have to do is we have to call this get all employees method from the main method. Okay, so we have to call here. We have to call after here. We have to call get all employees. We have to pass EC. EC is the employee controller. Okay, so now we are done with that. So now what we do is we will run this code and see the output now. Okay, so now what we have done, we have added 5 employee objects using the add employee details method of the employee controller, and we call the get all employees method and iterate the return array list and print all the employee details. Okay, that is what we have done it in this code so far. So what we have to do is we have to run this code and see the output now. Okay, right. So let us run this code. Now see the output now. So we have got the output: employee ID 101, name as Kumar, manager, designation manager, salary 70,000, ID 102. So it prints all the values. Okay. So now what we do, let us write a code for getting a specific employee details. Okay. So let us write here another static method of outside the main method. We will write one more static method. So which will be which we can use it for getting a specific employee details. So how to write it? So we can write public static void get employee details. Okay. So you have to here you have to pass this employee controller. Okay. EC. Then inside this method we have to what we need to do is we have to also we need the ID. We have to which ID we want to get the employee details. So that ID also you have to pass it to this method. So with using that ID we have to retrieve the get the employee details. Okay. So what we do is we will declare a class employee. We have to do one more thing, because this get employee details method of the employee controller throw exception, right? So we have to use the try catch block here. So we have to use the try catch block, right? And we have to use the catch block. Okay. So inside catch block, we have to catch the employee not found exception E, and inside this catch block, we have to import this employee not found exception also, right? So inside the catch block, unreachable catch block for employee. Okay, right? Because we haven't written the code, right? That is why it is showing this one. So once we are done with that, it will be okay. So you have to call the get employee details method. Okay, and we have to pass that ID. Now inside the catch block, what you have to do is you have to print system dot out dot println. What we have to do is you have to say we have to give the message to the client or customer or whoever calls this, right? Uh, employee details not found for the ID. For the ID we have to get the ID, right? For the ID this number. So this is the message you have to give, right? Otherwise we can what we have to do is we have to have this employee. You have to print the employee object. Okay, and you have to import. Yeah. So we have got the employee object. So what we are doing at line number 51. We are calling the get employee details method of the employee controller, and we are passing the ID. It returns employee object. Otherwise, it will if for that ID if there is no employee object, it will throw exception. So if it throws exception, we will display the message employee details not found for the ID. If it doesn't throw exception, if there is an employee object available, then we have to print the employee details using the system.out.println. So we can copy this code from here to here and paste it here. Okay. So now what we do, we call this get employee details from the main method. Okay. So what we do, we comment this line. So get all employees, you comment it for while, then we can call only get employee details, right? We have to pass employee controller, as well as we want that employee details of 103. Okay, so we pass it 103, right? So now what we are doing here in this test, we add all the 5 employee objects and we call get employee details and pass the and we call the get employee details for the ID 103. So for ID 103 we want the employee details. So you will see, we run the code and see the output now. So let us run this code now and see the output. See, for the 103 ID, we are getting the details. ID 103, name John, designation developer, salary 70,000. Now what we do, we will send a, we will pass a ID. For that ID, if there is no employee details, so what we will do in this case, what we will, what we will do in this case, what will happen in this case? See, we will send a employee ID 106. So 106 there is no employee details. For 106 we don't have any employee details. In this case, what will happen? We will see. Let us run this code and see the output now. See, for that what we got, employee details not found for the ID 106. This is the smooth message we are getting, right? Okay. So this is how we can handle exceptions. Now next thing is we have to see uh, how to update employee details. Suppose we want to update employee details. So how to do that? For that, for that we will write one more method in here. One static method. One more static method. You will write it. Okay. So let us write one more static method. So public static void update employee details, and we have to pass the employee controller EC as well as a employee object, right? Employee E. Inside the method, inside this, what we have to write, we have to call the uh, employee controller. We have to call the employee controller update employee details method, and we have to pass the employee object, updated employee object. So what we have to do here in the main method, what we do, we let us create a employee object with updated details. Okay, otherwise what we can do, we call the get employee details. See, that is a more professional way of doing it. So what we can do is employee, so we want to update employee object of, we want to update employee object of, here we have to write a try catch block also. In that case we can do this way, we will have it here inside this update here. Okay, so what we do, we will have a try catch block, try, and we have a catch block here, just have it here, catch block. And inside this try block, what we do is, let us also declare a employee object here, employee variable here, employee E. So inside the try block, we call ec dot get employee details, and we pass the uh, we pass the ID 103. We want to update the employee details of ID 103. So we want to update the employee details of John. We want to update the employee details of John. We want to promote him to a senior developer. So what we have to do is we have to pass 103 ID to this method. So which will return me the employee ID, employee object specific to 103. Okay, right. So once we get it, what we can do is we can send this object e to here. Before that we have to update, right? So e dot set designation as senior developer. Okay, we are done with that. Okay, now what we do, we go to the main method, inside the main, what we do is we will we will first call this get employee details and pass 106, 106, not 106, here it is 103. Okay, we print all these things, then we print system dot out dot println println we print after updating okay, after updating, that is, we call the get update employee details here. We call the update employee details. We call that one here. Here we can call that. Okay. So here we pass the EC, okay, EC comma. Here we don't need to pass the employee details. Simply leave it. Don't need to pass that. Simply EC. This is sufficient. Okay. So we don't need to pass that. So we call the update employee details, which will update the employee details of 103. Then again we call the one not again we call the get employee details. What we are doing here, we also comment this line, this part. Okay. So what we do here is we call the get employee details of 103. So it will display all the details. Then we update the employee 103 employee. We update the employee details of 103 by updating the designation. Then we print after updating. Again we call get employee detail. We can find what is whether it is updated or not. That we can find it very well. Okay. That is what we are going to do now. So here it is EC, right? Wait, what is the problem here? Duplicate parameter. It is, you can say EF, employee not found exception. Okay, EF. Right. So we are done with the code. Everything we are done. Here also, here it is E, right? What is the problem here? The local variable may not be has been initialized. Okay, we have to assign null value. Okay. So now we are done with the code. Now we can run and test it and see the output now. See the output, guys. So employee ID 103, name John, designation developer. After updating, employee ID John 103, employee ID 103 John, name as John, designation senior developer. So now it is updated well, right? So next one, only thing is left is, which is the remove the employee details. So we'll see that part. So for that we have to write one method, a static method. Okay. So let us write a static method, public static void remove employee details, and we have this employee controller here, and also which id we want to remove. For which id we want to remove the employee update, that also we have to pass it id. So inside this, what we have to do is you have to call the ec dot remove employee details, and we have to pass the id. That's it. Okay. So what we do, we go to the main method, and inside the main method what we have to do, we have to call this remove employee details method. Okay. So we will call that method now. Okay. So let us go to main method. Inside the main method what we do, we will comment all those things. See, we will comment this line of code, we will comment this line of code, we will comment this line, we will comment this line of code also. So what we do, we uncomment this line. So first we will retrieve all the employees. So we print all the employee details. Then we remove. Then we will also have one system dot out dot println. We will remove the employee details by passing employee controller object, and we want to remove the id 103. Okay, or 103 105 we can remove, or 101. 101 we can remove. Okay. So what we do, we will have one system dot out dot println. Here we will print before removing employee 101. Then we will print all the details, right? Then after removing this, we will have we will print after removing employee 101. Again, we call the get employee details method. We can find the difference, right? And also we will have a delimiter. We will have this way. We will have it like, okay. So now what we have done here, we first add all the five employee details. So from line number 15 to line number 19, we add employee details, five employee objects we have stored. Then we print before removing employee 101. We call the get all employees method, which will print all the employees details. Then we call the remove employee details by passing employee controller and 101. In the at the end we have a static method, right? That static method is remove employee details method, which we inside that method we are calling remove employee details of the employee controller and pass the ID. So it will remove that employee details for the ID 101. Then we are printing after removing employee 101. Then again we are calling get all employees, which will print all the employee details. So from that we can find that the employee object is removed or not. So that is a good test for us. Okay. So let us run this code once again and see the output now. Right? Now let us run this code. So now see the output, guys. So before removing employee 101, so it prints all the employee details: ID 101, name Kumar, designation manager, salary 70,000; ID 102, name Ram, designation project lead and salary 50,000, and so on. Then we have after removing employee 101. This time you can see the employee, for the employee 101 we don't have it is not printed. So employee 101 is not printed, only we are getting 102 ID 102 name Ram, those details are printed. That means the employee object 101 is removed successfully. Okay, so we have tested all the functionalities, like we have added employee details, we are able to um, get all the employee details and print it. We are able to update an employee details. We are able to get a specific employee details. We are able to remove employee details. So we have done all those things, right? So one thing we want to say is we have a in this we have one issue here. Even if we are able to even if we are able to add a duplicate value, right? Because it is an array list, right? Even if you are able to add a duplicate value, it will accept. So see, let me comment these lines of code. Let me comment these lines of code. Okay, I will comment all these lines. See, now I only call the get all employees. Okay, see the output, how it is showing. Okay, so let us run this code and see the output now. So see the output now. We can see the employee objects are added twice, the duplicate values are there. So how to solve this issue? Because array list will allow duplicate values. So it is, so how to solve this issue? To solve this issue, we can use a set along with array list. So what we can do is we can declare a set. Okay. So private set employee. Okay. Then employee emp set equal to new hash set. right? Asset employee, right? We have to import, set and asset, right? Something wrong. Okay, so let us import asset and also set, right? So now what we do is, inside the add employee details, we try to add employee object into the set, and always the add method employee the asset will not allow duplicate values. So if already a duplicate value is there, the add method will not successfully add the data. It will not add, but it will return a false. It will return a boolean variable value false. So from that we can find whether a duplicate value is there or not. So b boolean b equal to emp set dot add method. So add, we have to pass the employee object. Okay, we have to pass the employee object, and what we do is we have to check if B is true. That means emp set we are calling add method. If already a employee object is there, the same employee object is there, then that method will not add that, and it will return false. If it returns true means the employee object is successfully added. That means there is no duplicate value. So if it is true, then we can add the employee object into the array list. So we can have if b. If b is true, then we can add it. Otherwise, you can leave it. But here is one thing: this will not work as it is, because we have to implement equals and hash code method inside the employee class. Then only it will work. Okay. So let us do that part. So let us include the equals and hash code method, right? And we have to only check the id. Id is the only thing. Other thing we should not compare. If both ids are same, then we can consider that employee objects are equal, right? Fine. So now we are done that part. Now we can run this code. Okay, now we can run this code and see whether it is how it is working. So now we have added employee object 101 twice. So in this case, this time, see whether we are getting duplicate values or not. Okay, let us run this code and see the output guys. So this solves the problem, right? So we have employee id 101, name Kumar, designation manager, salary 70,000, then id 102. So we are not getting the duplicate value now. Okay, so we are done with the testing. So in this project case study, so what we learned is we learned about how to develop a Java application, right? Using layers. Okay, we used various layers like controller, service, repository, model, and so on.